Hey everybody, Jersey First TV back with you tonight. Elizabeth Nader here. I am honored to bring to you an incredibly intelligent and gifted man, Dr. Johnathan Lesser, who's going to make you guys that much smarter tonight. Dr. Johnathan, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Elizabeth.
Well, we've got to give some of your background so people can understand why it's so important to hear from you tonight. You are president of Continental Economics Incorporated, which is, you've got 35 years of experience. You are an adjunct fellow with the Manhattan Institute. You're the co-author of 3 textbooks. I'm going to go on and on because I want people to know. You're an editorial board member for natural gas and electricity. You have been in front of so many regulatory commissions. You have testified. You have been commercial litigation cases. Let me just say that you are the energy and economics expert, and we are thrilled to have you here tonight. Is that a good enough definition of all these years of experience?
Well, my definition of expert, which I used to joke with people, is someone from out of town. So since I'm in New Mexico, I guess I qualify for your show.
Well, we'll take it because Dr. Johnathan, today you are going to be a New Jerseyan and you are going to educate us on the incredibly shocking push in this state that Governor Murphy has been behind regarding changing our energy. Now, I have to tell you, as we dig into this, there are a lot of reasons for New Jerseyans not to vote for Governor Murphy in November. And I just want to say, after my research on this topic and your paper and everything you've done, I'm going to put this near the top of the list. I am shocked at what is going on. Let's educate everyone tonight with your deep information. So first of all, Dr. Johnathan, in 2018, just to set the stage, Governor Murphy had an executive order that says we have to go totally clean energy in New Jersey by 2050. Is that an accurate restatement of that executive order?
That's correct. And out of that executive order, last year, in 2019, the end of 2019, they published what's called the New Jersey Energy Master Plan. And that lays out all the different strategies from soup to nuts on how New Jersey is going to achieve zero carbon emissions. And let me just, before we get into the specifics of the plan, let me give people an idea of the emissions impact. Right now, New Jersey emits about 100 million tons of carbon dioxide. Sounds like a lot. That's less than 1 day's worth of world carbon emissions. So even if New Jersey eliminated all its carbon emissions today, was purely green, it would have zero impact on the climate. It would devastate New Jersey's economy,
right?
But in terms of actual impacts on the climate, nothing.
So all of this for basically next to nothing as it relates to helping what people are concerned about with climate change. I mean, not even really moving the needle.
No, it won't move it. Even a few months back, President Biden's climate czar, John Kerry, said even if the entire U.S. reduced its carbon emissions to zero tomorrow, it have no effect on the climate. So New Jersey, this is really, it's a combination, I think, of virtue signaling and, frankly, people lining pockets of the politically chosen few.
Right.
And those chosen few happen to be a lot of green energy providers.
Well, we'll follow the money a little bit tonight to educate people on that. But the Energy Master Plan, so that everybody, when we talk about the EMP, all of you in New Jersey need to understand that that is the Energy Master Plan that is put together to address Governor Murphy's executive order in 2018 for us to be all clean energy by 2050. All right, so this plan, Dr. Johnathan, is full of mandates. And I think that must be Governor Murphy's favorite word because we've been dealing with so many mandates from him. And as it turns out, this energy plan is full of mandates. So let's start with the impact to the individual homeowner. What does the Energy Master Plan indicate must happen within each person's home by 2050?
Well, the Energy Master Plan wants to force everyone to convert if you have natural gas electric or natural gas heat, a natural gas furnace, natural gas water heat, even a natural gas stove, the EMP wants you to pay for putting electric, an electric heat pump in, electric hot water heater, and replacing a gas stove with an electric stove.
So literally rip it out. We literally
You'll have to literally rip it out, not only install the heat pumps, but probably for a lot of older New Jersey houses, you'll have to rewire because the your house wasn't built to handle the electric load. So the cost, now the Energy Master Plan, they hired some consultants from the Rocky Mountain Institute to develop the costs, and basically it won't cost much at all. And they said replacing a new electric heat pump will cost about $7,000 versus $3,000 for a new natural gas furnace. So essentially what that means, though, is I looked at the actual costs of heat pumps, and based on Massachusetts experience, and they did a survey of about 600 homes. Well, the actual cost of all those heat pumps was around $23,000 on average, not $7,000.
Wow.
So plus you need supplementary heat because heat pumps don't work very well when it's very cold. And
Right.
In New Jersey, it gets cold in January and February.
Yeah, it does. It does. So let's make this really, really specific for people. They're looking at their gas stove right now. Governor Murphy is saying no more natural gas, just so everyone understands. He wants to get away from that to electrical. So you have to either rip that out and buy a new appliance that is an electric stove top, or you have to install this heat pump. What is a heat pump?
A heat pump is basically a refrigerator that works in reverse.
Mm.
So a heat pump is just for your furnace. You can get a heat pump electric water heater as well, but they're costly. And the thing that's ironic is if you say you took in your house, Elizabeth, you put in a heat pump today, the electricity is going to be generated primarily by natural gas.
Right.
So essentially you're gonna take out a very high efficiency natural gas furnace, and you're going to replace it with electricity generated from natural gas plants, which are efficient. But by the time you generate the electricity and you transmit it and distribute it to your house, you're probably going to lose about half the actual energy value. So it makes no sense right now because you're just replacing it with a more inefficient way of using energy.
So we're losing efficiency, which is counterintuitive, but also who is paying for this? Because if you look at a typical home that will have, let's say, a gas stovetop or a gas water heater, most do, right? Other things, their furnace, whatever is driven by natural gas, they're going to either need to replace or install this pump. So who's paying for all of this, Dr. Johnathan?
Well, the EMP talks a lot about subsidies. Oh, we're going to subsidize this. We're going to get investors to do this. Ultimately, it's all of you. It's going to be New Jersey taxpayers, everyone. And after you do this, you increase the demand for electricity. You're going to pay more for your electricity. So the plan is the plan even admits, well, we think it'll cost $2 billion more a year. Mm. Now, I think that's a huge underestimate of the costs of the plan. In fact, my analysis is that over the next 30 years, to reach that carbon goal set out in the plan by Governor Murphy, it will cost New Jersey citizens $300 billion or more. That's $30,000 roughly per person.
Wow. $30,000 per person that this plan will cost New Jersey taxpayers, homeowners, businesses.
And that's before you even consider, how many businesses are going to say we can't compete anymore because of high electric costs. We can't do this, and we're going to leave, and we're going to take the jobs with us. The plan seems to think that you're going to create this green energy nirvana that everyone's going to have high-paying green jobs. There's no evidence of that at all. In fact, it's just the opposite. The green jobs, installing solar panels, etc., tend to pay less. They're shorter period jobs. They pay less. The offshore wind jobs, I know some of the union groups, Electric 825, have been very upset because even though they're fully trained to install those turbines and work on them, for Ocean Wind, the first project that's being developed by Ørsted, Ørsted's planning to bring its own people from Europe.
And Ørsted is, so everyone knows, is not an American company. Ørsted, who would be putting the wind turbines in offshore, all of that money would be going to a non-American country.
It's a Danish company, and just about all of the offshore wind development that's proposed off the Atlantic coast, not only New Jersey, but New York, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, those are all being developed by European companies. And one thing your listeners may not be aware of is that earlier this year, the Biden administration allowed a new offshore wind tax credit. So they get to write off or get a credit for 30% of their total cost of the project. So I estimate just for the Ocean Wind project off the New Jersey coast, that's over $1 billion of U.S. taxpayer money that gets to go right overseas into Ørsted's pockets, and that's not including the fact that the price for that project starts at $100 a megawatt hour, and that's roughly 5 times higher than the current wholesale price that New Jerseyans are paying for their electricity now.
Crazy.
So it's going to raise electric rates. You're going to be paying more for electricity. And the other problem, of course, is wind and solar aren't reliable.
Yeah, let's actually, Dr. Johnathan, let's dig into that a little bit, because just so people understand, what they're looking to generate this electricity with is primarily wind and solar. So I want to talk about those two right now, because it's not really been sold to us in a way that is truthful. Most people see it as a sort of green solution, and it feels like it's the right thing to do. Let's actually tell the truth about this. Let's start with wind. Let's start with that. They're looking at offshore, construction of these wind turbines to generate electricity. Now, tell people, what does it take to do that? What are the real concerns, and what are the things we don't know about that?
Well, offshore wind right now is probably the most expensive, most costly renewable technology. It's more expensive than solar panels. The offshore wind, the turbine size, they're about 800 feet tall, so taller than the Statue of Liberty by far. Wow. Almost as tall as the Empire State Building. Wow. So the problem is they're going full speed ahead on this. All the fisheries interests are very concerned that the fishermen are not going to be able to, the turbines are going to be spaced too close together. They won't be able to rescue people. There's concern about the effects on endangered species like right whales, on other migrating fish species, on birds. I've talked to some of the NOAA, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration scientists. When I did a wind project a few years ago, I asked them, what are the cumulative impacts of all these wind turbines that are going to be built up and down the Atlantic coast? And they said they don't know. And right now, the environmental impact statements that the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management has issued are basically saying, who cares? We're just going to go with it. So, people should know that, and not only what this also means is that, okay, when the wind doesn't blow, and as most of you know, the sun tends not to shine at night, so you need backup power. And what's that backup? Well, the Murphy administration, the EMP, thinks it's going to be batteries. That's completely unrealistic. Battery technology is too costly. It's not there yet. projections of, oh, batteries are going to be too cheap to meter. Don't believe that. That's not true. And, the other thing is a lot of the environmentalists pushing battery storage tend to ignore the fact that where's all that, the mining of materials coming from? A lot of it comes from the Congo, where they use child and slave labor to mine cobalt. Lithium comes from China. Rare earth metals, almost all controlled by China, because environmentalists in this country won't let any new mines be developed. So, you're basically saying we don't care about horrible environmental impacts in other parts of the world because it's out of sight, out of mind.
Wow, the hypocrisy in this is tremendous on so many levels. So many questions with wind, and of course, when the wind stops blowing, and then now with solar, when the sun is not shining enough, what happens to us is what happened in California. Now, Dr. Johnathan, before we talk about California, because we already have evidence of what a disaster this can be, we do know Governor Murphy has said to us in New Jersey that he wants to be the California of the East Coast. So apparently he also thinks that this is a good plan where we have rolling blackouts and issues with energy availability. So tell everybody what has happened to California as a result of implementing wind and solar.
Well, California is very heavily reliant on solar now. California likes to tout that, oh, we're very clean and green. They do import import more electricity than any other state. A lot of that is fossil. Some of it is hydroelectric power from the Pacific Northwest. But what happened last year is that the wind stopped blowing. And it's in the summer, it's very hot. And so they have rolling blackouts. They also had a problem where they had some clouds go over some of the solar facilities in Southern California. And now one thing I've said is, if your energy policy depends on tomorrow's weather forecast,
that's not good.
That's a problem.
Yeah.
And what's so strange about this to me is they're calling for far more reliance on electricity, essentially total reliance on electric power. Let's get rid of all fossil fuels, just have electricity. Well, when that electricity isn't available, its loss is even more devastating to people.
Right.
In terms of, lost income, health losses for people who need electric devices to maintain their health. All that has to be considered. And no one is.
No, and not only that, this isn't theory. We've actually seen it play out in California. We can actually point to it and say this doesn't work. We need another solution. Dr. Johnathan, what do you say to people who, really are focused on the climate change issue? How would you address that and say, what is a real solution here? And I know you are a very big advocate of natural gas, and I think some truth needs to be told about natural gas that people don't understand. So help educate us on the truth about it, and what do we really need to address if we are looking at climate change?
Sure. Well, one thing people should realize is that from 2010 to 2020, the U.S. reduced its greenhouse gas emissions by about 20%. That's more than any other country. The reason for that was the switch from natural gas. All the hydraulic fracturing, such as goes on just west of you in Pennsylvania and the Marcellus Shale, that's enabled a switch from coal to natural gas. Right. That's allowed the emissions to go down. If you really wanted to reduce emissions, you build nuclear plants. They're, the most reliable form of energy, electricity there is. But unfortunately, environmentalists don't want nuclear plants. They just want wind and solar. In your state, the environmentalists forced the closure of Oyster Creek 9 or 10 years before its license was up. In California, the PG&E's Palo Verde plant will be shutting down in a few years, again, because the environmentalists opposed any sort of relicensing effort, and PG&E just gave up. So that's happening everywhere. So, and the other thing I would tell people about climate change is, one, it gets portrayed as this, we're going to all die by
Right.
2038 years from now. Then, well, that's just nonsense. They talk about rising sea levels. If you look at the New Jersey actual data, sea levels have been rising about 2 millimeters per year. So after 100 years, that's 6 or 7 inches, not 20 or 30 feet like some people claim.
Right.
And they've been rising since the last ice age, by the way, when sea levels were several hundred feet lower because New Jersey was probably covered in about a mile thick ice sheet.
Right.
So it's just nothing New Jersey does, even if you believe climate change is significant. New Jersey eliminating its emissions won't do a thing. And the rest of the world is not following this. China is planning to build many more coal plants. They're giving up they just announced they're ending their subsidies for solar and wind.
Wow.
So it's not going to happen. And, the Swiss just voted down they had a vote on, should we put on a carbon tax? And people voted it down. And nothing Switzerland would have any impact on the climate anyway. So basically, right now, our energy policy is let's jump off a cliff and hope everyone follows us. It makes no sense.
Well, you called it green virtue signaling, and I think that's a good thing to call it because it does make no sense. We have evidence to the contrary that it doesn't work. And, AOC, I think she told us 2 years ago that we had 12 years left. So we only have 10 years left, Dr. Johnathan. So TikTok, you got to fix this in 10 years. You're one of the smartest guys in the energy field. So I'm sure you have a solution for us because I can hear that clock running.
Well, I think the solution is in the nonsense.
Yeah.
I asked myself, what's the next crisis? The next existential crisis after climate change.
Right.
Now they're calling it a climate emergency, climate collapse. I've heard that term recently.
Right.
Is the climate changing? Sure it is. Is mankind having an influence on the climate? Absolutely.
Right.
Just go to any downtown city. You will feel the heat island effect of a city. So sure, we're having an impact. Is it the most important issue facing the world? No, not at all. And people need to stop being so terrified and allowing themselves to be frightened to death by all this. And if you really want to cut emissions, you need to focus on nuclear power.
Yeah.
Because that is truly the only reliable emissions-free electricity source there is.
Right. Right.
And, unfortunately, nuclear power has been demonized for the last 40 years with 3 Mile Island back in 1979, with the Fukushima plant tidal wave that happened in 2012. Governor Cuomo ordered the shutdown of Indian Point, which is 30 miles north of New York City. He said it wasn't safe. Well, if you think a 50-foot tidal wave is going to strike 30 miles up the Hudson, you've got bigger problems to deal with if something bad has happened. So it's just, and that's while they're subsidizing upstate nuclear plants. So it just makes the energy policies make no sense.
They make no sense. I have to imagine following the money is one of the ways we can make them. Sure. We can understand what's going on here, and you've painted a little dire picture there, following the money and the money that's going to other countries. And you even mentioned with the Danish company, once the wind turbines stop working or they are abandoned, they're not responsible anymore for that, right? They don't have to maintain. That's right. People should know, even though there's a requirement that offshore wind turbines be decommissioned, like nuclear power plants. Unlike nuclear power plants, the contracts that New Jersey and the other states have signed with these offshore wind developers have no obligation on their part to put any money aside to decommission them. They're set up as what are called limited liability companies, like a lot of businesses. And what that means is, for example, Ocean Wind, which is owned by this giant European company called Ørsted, it's its own Ocean Wind LLC.
And so its only assets are the wind turbines. So when the wind turbines fail, and another professor in Europe and England has done extensive research on European wind turbines, both onshore and offshore. He found 80% of turbines that are new since 2010 have suffered catastrophic failures. That's 80%. That's pretty high. Well, when you start having these turbines fail, if it's no longer economic to operate them, ocean wind can basically just walk away. And the bill to clean up the mess will be either New Jerseyans, ratepayers, and U.S. taxpayers.
Wow, that's horrific. And just to think about these dotting the coastline out of our beloved New Jersey shore is just too much to really have to accept here. This affects everyone. And one other topic that's brought up a lot, and I want you to sort of set the record straight on, is the claims of air quality and health benefits, really health benefits to the individual within the home and things like that. What do you say about the change that they want to make and how that would affect the air quality within someone's home?
Well, it's certainly true that if you're using your gas stove to heat your home, that's probably not a good idea to do, and you really shouldn't do that. And hopefully there aren't many people that are in that situation.
Right.
The thing about it is they're talking about eliminating local air pollution emissions, but what they forget is, great, so you're going to have all the, say for example, you use electric vehicles. Most of the pollution from any vehicle, a new gas vehicle, emits almost nothing. And I did some studies showing that electric vehicles would actually produce more pollution from the electricity that's generated. But most pollution, if you see a brand new car going down the road, most of the pollution is actually from the tires and the asphalt. Those particles, plus if you're going down a dirt road, then it's the dirt. So it's not coming out of the tailpipe. So that's not going to change. And then what you're going to end up doing is having a lot more pollution generated west of New Jersey. Well, the prevailing winds just happen to be west to east.
Right.
So, you'll get rid of some of the very local pollution a little bit, but then you'll have more pollution from the west, and it's just going to drift over the state.
Wow.
So is that a benefit health-wise? Well, I would doubt it. I'm not an epidemiologist, but that doesn't sound like a good idea to me.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't sound that way. So this impacts everyone. I think one of the few issues in life where every single person is going to be impacted in their wallet, in their lifestyle, and everything if this continues to march forward. So what do you suggest people do? I mean, first we want to educate them. And I'll tell you what, your paper is amazing. It's written in such an intelligent way, yet so easy to understand. So first, let's tell people where they can read that, because it's excellent. It will arm them with the knowledge they need to push back against this.
Well, people can go on the Affordable Energy for New Jersey website. That's where my paper on the building electrification is. They can go to the Manhattan Institute website and see all my various publications. If you suffer from insomnia, go ahead and read it. It'll cure it for sure. But what people have to realize is a lot of these subsidies are really aimed at the wealthiest New Jerseyans. Electric vehicle subsidies. Well, an new electric vehicle that costs $50,000 or $60,000, most people can't afford that.
Right.
Solar panels on your home. Well, if you don't have a home, you're not going to have subsidized solar panels. You're not going to have a subsidized electric vehicle charger in your garage because you don't have a garage. So a lot of this is really welfare for the wealthy. Yeah. And I would suggest to people, contact your local politicians. Probably a lot of them, I imagine, have been, handsomely rewarded by green energy developers, electric vehicle developers, etc. But hopefully there's some that, will listen and will understand that this is going to wreck the New Jersey economy. It won't. It's not going to save it the way the Energy Master Plan predicts and create millions of new jobs and brand new industries. All the states are saying we're going to gain first mover advantage with all these new industries. Well, they all can't gain a first mover advantage.
Right.
So, it's basically your tax dollars, the money you're paying on your electric bill is basically going into someone else's pocket.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's it. Ultimately, Dr. Johnathan, at Jersey First, we're about putting Jersey residents first. And I have to say, and everything I've learned from you and prior to you coming on, this plan in no way puts Jersey residents first. In fact, it's another reason for them to flee the state, which has been something for us that has been going up in huge numbers, people leaving. And I don't see how the working class can stay in this state and afford what Governor Murphy is pushing down our throats. Frankly, it's not sustainable.
And well, if Governor Murphy, as you said, wants to be just like California's middle class is being hollowed out entirely.
That's
the
right.
state has the highest poverty rate in the nation. It has the greatest wealth disparity. It's destroying the middle class.
Yeah.
And people are leaving. So if that's what Governor Murphy wants, well, the Energy Master Plan is a great start.
Sounds like it is for him to accomplish that. So the good news, Dr. Johnathan, is that everyone is up for election this November in New Jersey. Every assembly person, every senator, and the governor himself. So everyone that's listening to this video, definitely go read Dr. Johnathan's paper. It's very easy to understand. It will help arm you with the arguments you need to call your assembly person, your senator, call the governor, say, hey, guys, where do you stand on all of this? And it's another reason for us to fight back and not put Murphy back in office. He's destroying our state. And I have to tell you, Dr. Johnathan, this is a sobering conversation. Everything that I've read, it's overwhelming to me what will happen to New Jersey if this plan is not blown up. And we really need to push back. So we appreciate you. We appreciate all your knowledge. Putting energy with economics is a powerful position. And as we move towards the election and watch all this happening, we may need to have you back on to keep educating people if you'll do that so that we can actually fight.
I'm happy to appear and help you out any way I can. So just feel free to call me. I'd love to talk to your listeners again.
We appreciate it so much. Guys, we'll put the link to his document in the comments on the various pages where this video will be. And as Rosemary Becky says, who started Jersey First, just say no to California. It's a great state in a lot of ways, but we don't want to live that way in New Jersey. So it's time for us to wake up and understand what's going on here. Dr. Johnathan, I'm going to let you go. I appreciate all the time you've given us. We will definitely stay in touch with you and have you back.
Thanks, Elizabeth. I appreciate you having me on today.
And to my audience, guys, we will see you next week. Thank you.